Hey guys, thank you so much for joining me in another video. So today we're going to be talking about Gucci by DEMNA. This is the pre-fall 2026 collection. I really just wanted to talk about it today, mainly the bags, but also we'll talk about the clothes and the bigger picture, which always matters, but a lot to unpack here. So when talking about this collection, DEMNA talked about this idea of FOMO, or fear of missing out, which is, for being honest, how a lot of luxury brands promote themselves. Not all, but think of things like this idea of exclusivity, limited editions, it bags, the panic before a price increase. FOMO is part of this business model. And when talking about it, he said, fashion has to create FOMO. I'm a fashion consumer and I love when I see something and I don't need it because nobody needs fashion, but I have a FOMO of not having it. This is the magic of fashion, and a lot of people try to rationalize fashion, but it's not rational. It's about creating an unexpected and absolutely unnecessary desire. And with this collection, this lookbook that we're seeing, he actually shot this himself, and you can see what he's doing here is there are these very Tom Ford Gucci-esque spotlights, very dramatic, very 90s, very cinematic. And DEMNA also said in this collection he wanted it to feel light, not heavy, which is a major pivot from Balenciaga. And honestly, I kind of agree with him. Like, lightness does feel very luxurious, but it's wild seeing him talk about that because Balenciaga has always felt like it's weighed like 40 pounds per look. The silhouettes here are noticeably lighter, very 90s Tom Ford, which personally I love, like so many other people. But like when I look at this, it feels a little bit flatter to me. When I think of Tom Ford's Gucci, maybe it's just because we're seeing quite an edited view, whereas I think with the Tom Ford shows, maybe it feels a little bit more alive because they're actual fashion shows. But even just like the silks, the velvet outlines, the way the spotlight hits the shinier materials, and there's sort of that like glow at night, or the glow of the silhouette at a nightclub or something. Some of these looks definitely capture that. Definitely the references were very clear. There were some looks that definitely had a lot more dimension. Of course, this is a very minimalist look, and I think minimalism can often go in this direction of looking quite flat, and I think the way we've been seeing minimalism, if I think about brands like The Row, materials that are very like sumptuous and tactile, this to me, I'm again reminded of this sort of like 90s minimalist look. But overall, it's giving me this feeling of nostalgia, and again, this like idea of FOMO, this idea of desire. But let's go look at these bags. So for the first bag here, we've got this mini Gucci Jackie. It's east-west. You can see this in white and in black and in several looks. It's east-west. It's cute. It's wearable. It's nice. It's kind of got more of a slouch to it. This is actually a little bit different from Tom Ford 90s era bags, which were very structured, very shiny, quite architectural. This has, I think, sort of a DEMNA touch to it. This feels more in line with like DEMNA style, like think about the Rodeo, things like that. This is going to be one of the more accessibly, I'm going to say that in quotations, but relative to some of the other bags that we're going to see price-wise. Another bag that is kind of in this sort of like same category is the Gucci boat bag. So this is, I'm calling it the Gucci boat bag, but this is a revamped style of the boat bag. Also, I really appreciate that this bag is styled on a guy, because normally when we see these mini pouches, mini pochette styles, we don't really see them on the guys. Of course, bags are unisex. I like that he's showing it on a guy here. Why not like change up how we picture bags on, you know, guys in general? This one comes in the monogram, these sparkling finishes and these glittering finishes. So we're definitely getting this feeling of nostalgia. Like that's how DEMNA is creating this desire, with nostalgia. Now we've got this slouchy Gucci Jackie, but in this, is it croc? Is it alligator? I am not an exotics expert, so if you know, comment down below. Either way, these are very expensive. These relaxed Jackie crocker alligator bags. This is the total other end of the pricing spectrum from like the other two bags that we saw, which come in like the fabrics and the denim. We're seeing these two extremes, the small accessible boat bags and the pochettes and the Jackie pochettes, and then these ultra luxury top tier exotic leather pieces. This is the aspirational ladder in action, which is another tool to create desire. Now for this next bag here, we've got this long strap pouch bag. This one feels very 2000s Gucci, but for the guys, like I remember There was this period in the 2000s. I think of this kind of guys that would wear these Gucci like crossbody bags, or it could even be worn like sort of a belt bag, but these bags that look like they could be crossbody converted into belt bags, quite rectangular, but like very branded and very like obviously Gucci. Also the branding, it's quite signature to Gucci. These are very like signature colors, signature monogram, the Gucci red and green web. It's again feeding into this nostalgia and creating desire through nostalgia. We've got this East-West Dionysus. So again, this is an iconic style created by Alessandro Michele, but the proportion has been revamped. It's an East-West contemporary version, and we've got it in a few different colors, this red version. Then there's this really quite opulent cascading beaded fringe one that also feels a little bit gothic, and there is this look of this 90s minimalism. But then there's like this gothic glamour, which is also very Tom Ford, and it's definitely woven throughout this collection in sort of a pared back way. For me, I'm personally feeling the nostalgia for this, and I'm not gonna lie, like I really like it because I don't think we've been seeing a lot of fashion at these like major luxury levels like really go into this sort of period. Yes, we've seen like Y2K, like Murakami, the Dior saddlebag, etc. But I really think the Tom Ford Y2K era, there hasn't been such a deep dive into that, and I think it's just also because Gucci as a brand has gone through, there was Alessandro, the design team, Sabato, the design team, and now there's DEMNA, and there hasn't been this like stability, and hopefully maybe DEMNA's gonna be able to bring that, but it totally makes sense why Gucci is going back to that. And personally, what can I say? I really like it. But at the same token, I'm also somebody who really enjoys the pre-love market, and if I really wanted to get Tom Ford Gucci, it's not impossible to find these pieces. For this next bag, we've got this tote bag. It's kind of hard to see the details here, but this is one of the biggest bags. There's also this brown suede. I think this is that same bag here in that kind of same silhouette. So yeah, if you just needed brown tote, there's that. Now another new thing with this DEMNA era is this emphasis on trunks with the Archetypes collection, La Familia. First look were these trunks. And if we think about a brand like Louis Vuitton, especially under Nicolas Guesquier, of course under Marc Jacobs as well, but I think about how Nicolas Guesquier and a lot of his own creations, if I think about the popularity of the Petite Malle and these trunk looking bags that have been able to elevate the canvas line, because a lot of the canvas bags are, I really caution to use these words entry, especially 2025, but these are some of their more your first kind of purchase pieces, right? But I think Nicolas Guesquier really elevated that by adding these hard-sided trunk bags, made them look quite elevated. Maybe Gucci wants to do something similar. I will say with some of these looks, the Gucci trunks, they just feel like more like actual trunks at this point. Like these just feel like cases you'd store things in rather than handbags redesigned as trunks. Maybe they just want to sell literal trunks, but they're like actually modeling them, holding like luggage. That could be what they're going for as well. But it is interesting to see this kind of emphasis. It's not something we've really seen Gucci put a literal spotlight on. Next, we've got this duffel bag. Again, this is a very popular style sold at Gucci. Kinds of like travel bags are very in line with the heritage of Gucci. Very practical bag, and it does really well commercially. It's nothing really groundbreaking, but I'm sure you could probably just walk into a Gucci right now and find one of those bags, to be honest. And then we've got this crystal shoulder bag, and this is like a silver crystal bag. It's got this gold strap. So yeah, there were a lot of these kinds of crystal moments as well. The bags, crystal versions of other styles. Definitely a glam moment, definitely capturing the spotlight, and this glamorous look, definitely something different from DEMNA. Aesthetically, I have to say, like, there's a lot that I find very appealing here. Equally, I don't think it's necessarily innovative. I could absolutely find pieces like this, be it like the boat bag, be it worn in Jackie bags on the pre-love market. So there's definitely that, but I think that's like also a thing that has worked for these luxury brands. While Gen Z may not necessarily be buying the bags per se, maybe they find it on the pre-love market and then it sort of has this trickle up effect to like other generations. I will say it will draw more people in because a lot of people really do love this Tom Ford era, like the nostalgia. There's also this look of sexiness, and I think this kind of theme of Italian sexiness is very at the heart of Gucci. There's this gothic glamour, which, you know, I really love from the Tom Ford era. Honestly, I'm just glad we're not seeing like a reissue of Balenciaga, you know, his Balenciaga or his Vêtements. At the same token, when I zoom out, and if I just remove my personal love from this period of Tom Ford, again, it doesn't feel groundbreaking. And of course, this is only pre-fall 2026. This is his second collection. It's not meant to be his full creative vision, which we're going to see this coming February, I believe. This also connects to the bigger strategy shift at Gucci and Kering. The new CEO actually said that they wanted 80% of a focus to be on their existing products, and then 20% can be new. And you really feel that here. Like, most of these are bags that we already have seen, maybe in new proportions, new materials. They're stretched, they're slimmed down, they're reproportioned, revamped, but it's very much a part of this reset era where brands are adjusting the tone and the mood rather than rebooting everything from scratch. And if we just look at Kering associated brands like DEMNA at Gucci, Pier Paolo at Balenciaga, Alessandro at Valentino, like, we're seeing a lot of tonal shifts. But in terms of, if I look at the bags, I don't know if we have yet to see full-on creative visions yet. And I talked about this recently in another video. Now, in terms of where you guys stand, I love a good poll. These are the results. As I say, anything over a 50 on my channel is a pretty positive response, as you guys are a tough crowd, but that's why I also love your responses. But in terms of the comments from Sasha, there's no way not to like it, and that kind of bores me. I get where you're coming from, because it does kind of feel like the obvious thing. Maybe not the obvious thing, because Sabato did something a little bit different, but still was maybe trying to capture a sort of sleeker, modern, contemporary version of what Tom Ford did. It just didn't land, or it just didn't have the time to really land. It's like, of course people are gonna love it because it gives you that Tom Ford era nostalgia. Another comment, is it because it's Tom Ford, but it's not it because it's Tom Ford? Interesting response. And while we're seeing so much of this look that is very Tom Ford, I was reading the Vogue coverage, and he actually talked and made a reference to Frida Giannini, which is an era of the brand that fashion has kind of glossed over. Yet she was at the brand for quite some time, and she really brought this, he says, Italian feminine glamour, which he found very rare. And I think especially at this time, that feels very true, especially since Donatella is gone from Versace. Yeah, it's true. You don't really see a lot of feminine Italian glamour. She did bring in like a lot of florals, a lot of these kind of Art Nouveau prints, and maybe Demna finds some of that appealing with some of these looks. We're seeing the florals, we're seeing a little bit more of a fluid feminine sort of look. We're seeing Tom Ford, but we're also seeing a little bit of Frida, but the overall general takeaway is very Tom Ford. Another comment, Tom Ford copy and paste. And yeah, it does feel like a lot of looks very extremely inspired by Tom Ford. But, you know, I do think he is taking a bit of a different approach in terms of the bags. He does this sort of relaxed thing. Think of like bags like the Rodeo, but I will say, just after watching the Tom Ford 1995, the fall 1995 show, there's something about those bags that I don't know. I think they're so stunning, and I can see how, just looking at bags, like I did a video on bags from 1995, and how the bags from that collection, how incredibly fresh they must have felt. Think about bags from that era. Lady Dior bag, which kind of has this like really princessy like look to it with the little charms. And then he brings in these like holographic bags, these bags that have that high gloss, like shiny coat on the leather, and these bags that have this iridescence, that like shift in color when the light hits. And yes, it was the 90s, and that sort of like minimal look was there, but I think Tom Ford really brought this like sheen and the shine. And of course, we're actually seeing some of the shine, some of the glitter with some of these looks by Demna. So there is definitely depth there. There are also ways at which this feels like it's trying to be a one-to-one. This comment from Richie, I said and I waited with bated breath because I buy Gucci and been buying since Tom Ford, which is in my closet. So why would I buy the same thing in 2025 or 26? His show in February will make or break his tenure at this house, but so far, this is not it. I like the trunks, but everything else is blah. Another thing that I'm also thinking about is, if we're talking about this Tom Ford nostalgia, is this done in a way that feels fresh and modern? It feels fresh because this is a style, like the slimmer silhouette is not a style that we've been seeing a lot of high-end luxury brands really move towards in a major way. But if I think about a designer that has been doing Tom Ford that feels quite modern and fresh in a way that feels very authentic to him, is Haider Ackermann. Haider Ackermann's work at Tom Ford is that seduction, there is that sharpness, that glamour, that sheen, that shine, and there is a real depth to his work. And I think that depth comes from the fact that his language already intersects with Tom's. There's a natural connection between their aesthetics. So when Hyder references the era, it feels like an evolution, not just a throwback collection. It's nostalgic and forward thinking at the same time. So for me personally, I can't help but acknowledge I really do enjoy a lot of what I'm seeing. Innovation wise, I think the jury's still out, but if I look at what someone like Hyder Ackerman is doing, to me that feels like an evolution on the design language. Or if I want to get the literal look, I could just go vintage. But I'm really glad we're not just seeing Balenciaga 2.0. Anyways, guys, that's my video for today. Thank you so much for joining me in another one, and I hope to see you in the next one. Bye!